I'm Peter Austin, that is the long-abandoned farmstead of Low Roses Bower, and this is interesting. I'm currently standing in the Forestry England picnic area at Stonehoff Village within the Northumberland National Park, right next to, well, a public toilet, actually. It's not the kind of place I'd usually do an intro, sure, but as you'll see when we reach today's 300-year-old destination, it's a weirdly relevant backdrop. Relevant or not, though, I'd prefer to get going before someone catches me loitering outside a public toilet with a camera in my hand. So come with me as we look for a much older toilet that the National Park itself describes as extraordinary. Yes, we're here today to visit an initially quite unassuming outdoor toilet built sometime in the 1700s. Now that makes it by no means the oldest historic loo in Britain, although it is quite amusing to think we're about to visit a toilet that might be older than the United States of America. But when we get there and have a look inside, we'll see there is something very unique about it indeed. In fact, I need to keep my eyes peeled because we're almost there and I hear it's quite easy to miss. Set back right away from the road, nestled amongst mature trees and enclosed in a lovely stone structure, it really is the epitome of privacy. Just what you want when doing your business. But just before we get there, I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Hey Polo, who, quite fittingly, know all about privacy. You see, Hey Polo is a location sharing app with a difference. Frankly, I've never really liked the idea of those older tracker apps that constantly share the exact location of all your friends and family. Not only does it feel kind of creepy, but it also contributes to habitual anxious phone checking at certain times of the day. Oh, did they get home all right? Something we could all do with less of nowadays. Fortunately, Hey Polo is different. It's literally designed to reduce that anxiety and give the sharer the ability to fine-tune their desired level of privacy. You can display your exact location if you want to, or just a general area, and there's a private mode as well for when it suits. Users can also enable notifications for expected events, such as arrived home or left work, so you don't have to constantly check a live map for updates, and it will even let you know if someone's phone battery is about to die. When filming for this channel, I'm quite often driving out to deserted areas all by myself, places where I really wouldn't want to fall over and break an ankle, but with Hey Polo, I no longer have to remember to message my wife about my movements throughout the day, and she doesn't have to constantly check a real-time map to know whether I've arrived home. Best of all, Hey Polo is part of the Surfshark family, so you know your data is in safe hands, never to be sold or shared. So, if you're interested in giving it a try risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee, you can head to heypolo.com/Peter or use code PETER at checkout to get 40% off your first year. Anyway, my Hey Polo app will currently be showing we've just arrived at our destination, Low Roses Bower. This farmstead was built sometime in the 18th century, but has long since fallen into disrepair. The site is much older than the ruined buildings, though, probably 16th century, if not older. Indeed, the name is said to have come from a local woman, Rosamond Dodd, who in the 1500s fell for someone of high standing from nearby Charlton and used this secluded spot for lovers' trysts. Bower is an archaic term for such a place, hence Roses Bower. But we're not here for tales of romance. I hear you all screaming, "Show us the toilet." And here it is, a 300-year-old outhouse known as the Long Drop. It says so on the door. Now, the name is, in a sense, slightly deceptive in that traditionally the term long drop toilet tends to refer to a pit latrine, an outdoor toilet built over a deep hole in the ground, dug specifically for that purpose. Here, though, the toilet is perched over the edge of a gorge that drops away into the Warks Burn. And this is what's so special about it. While there are other surviving examples of latrines that overhang an edge like this rather than sit on top of that specially dug pit, this isn't any old overhanging example. This is the highest perched long drop toilet in England, with a fall beneath it of 10 to 15 metres. That's 40 feet. There is no toilet in the country that compares to this one. Now, as soon as I heard about about this place, I started rifling through my memory banks for equations I was taught in high school physics. If I recall correctly, the velocity of a dropped object is the square root of 2 times g times h, if you assume there's no air resistance. And if we plump for the top end of that height estimate, 15 meters, we arrive at an answer that tells us that the poop of someone caught short at this farmstead in the 1700s would have hit the water below at 17.2 meters per second, or 38.4 miles per hour. It really gives new meaning to the word droppings, doesn't it? As someone who seems to spend every other weekend visiting historical sites across Britain, I do see my fair share of old toilets, particularly of the latrine style. Only last week I was at Goodrich Castle in Herefordshire, which, like quite a few castle ruins, still has remnants of its garderobes, indoor long drop toilets that were either placed directly over a moat or ditch, or, as was the case at Goodrich, had pits below them from which the waste could be collected by gong farmers, as they were known then. As an invader, you would certainly hope the castle you were besieging had the latter set up. Wading through a moat that also doubled as an open sewer would be an excellent way to make yourself very poorly, even if you won the siege. In fact, latrine pits tended by gong farmers were still commonplace in Britain well into the 1700s when the long drop was constructed, although because pits in built-up areas tended to be cleared at night for the benefit of the general public, by then the gong farmers were often known as nightmen, and the material they removed was night soil. It was actually used as fertilizer from time to time, but human waste isn't the best choice for this. Let's just say it's better to stick it on the flower beds than in your vegetable patch. But it's this history of toilet technology that makes this site so interesting, even beyond its record-breaking height, in that it shows that even hundreds of years after the era of castle garderobes, long drop toilets were still in use in Britain with a design that had hardly changed at all. And even when flushing capabilities and sewer systems started to become more commonplace around the country, this old style of toilet was still useful in areas just like this, too isolated for that sort of infrastructure, especially if there was a handy waterway several meters below. No gong farmer or nightman required. And speaking of water, it's just starting to rain. Of course, latrines are still commonplace in other parts of the world where modern sewage processing isn't possible, although they do tend to favour the actual pit design rather than one that drops the waste directly into a river or stream. In fact, I'm not entirely sure to what extent the Warks Burn was used as a fresh water source downstream from here in the 1700s, but given that the long drop served only a single farmstead, one would assume it wouldn't have caused too many problems. I don't know, I'm speculating at this point, to be honest. It probably depends on the flow of the water and all sorts of other factors. Right, I'm hiding under a tree. In any case, today the long drop is locked, so it's a case of look but don't touch, and definitely do not use. The hole looks like a health and safety nightmare for one thing. You could absolutely fall right through that. So yes, if you decide to come out here to check out the beautiful ruins of Low Roses Bower and the surrounding countryside, you'd be much better off banking on the car park toilet if you're really desperate. As much as we'd all like to brag about it, I'm sure, I'm afraid there's no longer the opportunity to do a 38-mile-an-hour poop here. I've been Peter Austin, and that was interesting. And thanks again to Hey Polo for sponsoring this video. Remember, you can get 40% off your first year with a 30-day money-back guarantee by going to heypolo.com/Peter or using code PETER at checkout.